Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FinOps for Finance. Once again, today we have a very special guest. I'm joined by Coin Graham, who's the host of the Get Into Cloud podcast. So I'll hand over to Coin to give us a little bit of a background and introduce himself properly, what he does and why he does it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah. My name is Coin, and I'm the host of the Get in the Cloud podcast. Really a podcast focused on helping folks who don't have any background in IT or tech or maybe cloud, getting started on that journey from being outside of the cloud industry and learning how to find a way into the industry. I think a lot of us, you included me, we didn't have a CS degree coming out of college with the intention of this specific position, and so a lot of us grew into these roles. And so it's about trying to help folks who are trying to grope around in the dark to find that path into these jobs because they're so lucrative, they're fun, they're interesting. There's a lot of opportunities to work from work remote and things like that. So I think there's a lot of desire to get into that. And then I think we got connected. You have a great podcast about FinOps, and I think it's one area that can be a potential entry point for folks to get into the IT world. Right? It's such a useful skill. I think it requires a little bit of a mind shift for folks that are to understand that you can now spend freely once you're in the cloud versus when you're on premises. And so you need those gatekeepers kind of guarding the gates to make sure that folks don't misuse your money, right?
100%, 100%. And I suppose exactly like you alluded to Coin, the fact that you simplify some of the concepts of cloud, it's kind of combining that accountancy or finance background where you know the numbers, but you've got this abstract concept of these data centers owned by people in buildings you're never going to go to that are costing you money per second. And it's just trying to grapple with that abstract concept, I suppose, is the hard part. No better man to explain it than yourself. So I'll go through a small couple of questions, kind of try and find some specific signposts and stuff like that that might help those of us beginning into cloud, learning more about the cloud and the various concepts to try and kind of direct them where they can learn a little bit more, other than your amazing podcast, obviously. So first up, the if someone is beginning, is there any kind of beginner-friendly resources or platforms or communities that steer away from the technicalness of it all? I know myself when I started out, like servers, storage, networking, it's all such an abstract concept. What resources would you recommend that kind of break that down and simplify it to assist understanding?
Yeah, so there are a lot of resources out there. I would say in terms of platforms, you're really going to be looking at. I would recommend folks get involved and or look at YouTube at the very beginning. So there are a lot of videos, a lot of folks that are making free content that introduce you to cloud concepts. I would say listen to a lot of podcasts that are focused on cloud, focused on those concepts, because the technical jargon may be unfamiliar, but you do need to get familiar with the jargon and learn what those words mean. It really helps to learn those concepts and learn the why of cloud. Why would a company even use cloud versus building their own data center? So it's a core concept, and learning those technical words and getting familiar with those is helpful. I think training is a big piece from my perspective. If you want to make the transition, you're going to need to do some focused training. And depending on your education style, there are a lot of different folks that have different styles of training. There's free training. I think videos on LinkedIn. Gwyneth Pena Segenza. She goes by GPS, and I think she's at learntocloud.guide, and I'm sure we'll put all the links in the description and
Yes,
things like that. But
yeah.
She does a lot of free content and some paid content. She has a community on Discord and engages with her followers and people. She has a step by step program that she does to help folks learn how to do cloud. She's focused on Azure. She works for Microsoft. And then there's Adrian Cantrell. He has a paid learning program that is a self study course. So you go walk through his program, but it really is a deep dive into networking and servers and kind of getting the basics before you get into the cloud concepts. But he helps you get into the cloud concepts as well. Then there's a gentleman called named Andrew Brown, and he has some free and low cost boot camp style kind of programs where you're in a cohort of people and you're uh, working together to learn the concepts over a course of time. And I should mention, Adrian Conchell has a Discord as well. So it's a tech
Okay.
study Discord where folks go online and support each other. And then a gentleman I know named Broadus Palmer has a paid for boot camp, which is a more high touch kind of white glove, more like a traditional boot camp called Level Up in Tech. And it is like an intensive study course. It's the most expensive. I kind of went from cheapest to most expensive.
Okay.
But for
Yes.
some people, for some people, you can't, they're just not. I mean, I'm not self driven. Like if I go to the gym, I have to hire a trainer. It is what
Yes.
it is, right? Like I need someone there kind of driving me and telling me what I need to do and how many reps I need to do, right? So it
Yes.
really depends on your personality. I think you can get into cloud 100% by your own motivation and muscle if you have that personality. A lot of people don't, and so you need some level of someone driving you and helping you to stay motivated and giving having accountability and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of really good resources. I think for the cloud I recommend is AWS. They have a certification called the practitioner certification,
Yes.
and it is
Yeah.
the kind of very like lowest level certification for understanding cloud concepts. There's AWS has their own free trainings for getting that certification, and that really opens the door. I recommend people start there because if you don't like it, your investment is pretty small, right? Like if you're getting through this, like if you're dipping your toe in and it's too cold, it doesn't
Yeah.
get any better from there, right? Like so, the money isn't going to drive you to the end goal. You really do have to like kind of love it and be interested in it and feel like it's engaging.
I do really like your kind of the gym analogy that you use there as well. Coined the way you talked about the personal trainer, and I suppose if you're paying one of these trainers for the intensive boot camps and stuff like that, there's a certain level of pain in terms of I've paid for my gym membership, I've paid for my PT, so I'm definitely going to show up, and I'm definitely because it's going to hurt me physically, but it's going to hurt me financially, and you're by putting down that money, it's another barrier to stop you kind of withdrawing and kind of taking a step back. But like the other side of it then is the cloud practitioner, like you say, where it's about $100 for the exam. The training is free. So that's kind of the equivalent of just going for a run. Like you have the runners, you can go for a run. And if you die when you reach the first corner a block from your house, you'll know that maybe maybe I'm not ready for the PT and for the expensive gym just yet, and maybe I'll just build up to that. So it's different speeds for different folks. And I suppose one question about the boot camps and some of those, are a lot of those might be aimed towards, are they people going for like solution architects and those kind of roles, or do they have some versions where they're for someone who's just looking to get to that base level of kind of understanding the different speeds, I assume.
Yeah, most boot camps are, I would say boot camps are something you would do a little bit later in your process. Like you wouldn't, I would say in most cases, you wouldn't necessarily start there. Yeah, the purpose of a boot camp is to get you out the other end with a job, right? Like
Yeah.
really that's the value of a boot camp is really there. Anyone can train you, right? A lot of people can train you. The real value of the boot camp is their connections in the business and the industry, their connections and support for helping you to get a job, like job placement. I
Yes.
think people are missing really a lot of the value of a university degree and a boot camp. Like really, if you're not coming out of the end of that with a job that's going to start your career, it doesn't have to be a high paying job. It doesn't have to be like it just need you just need to get your train on the tracks, right?
Yes.
I think you realize, and most folks realize that once you get the first role in IT, your train's on the tracks. You're going to start to be ticking years of experience. You're
Yeah.
going to have a place where you're going to pay your bills, and you can also continue to do the training, continue to grow and learn, and then your career will upgrade naturally as you gain experience. And so really the boot camp is about getting that train on the tracks, and the big value you get from a boot camp, of course, other than the training and having that accountability, is making sure that someone's going to help you to find that first role when you come out the other end. And so if you haven't gotten your kind of cloud practitioner, if you haven't dipped your toe in, you're not sure, it could be expensive. Some boot camps are like $20,000, like they're, and I'm not recommending that, right? That's a lot of money. But some of them are like an abbreviated uni, so they really are a lot of hours intensive. And if you think about it in terms of here, if you want to have a good trainer, this is a person who could have a job making $150,000 a year. Instead, they're teaching classes, so
Yeah.
they're going to be paid well. And if they're investing hours per week and weeks per year, like it adds up quick for the people who are running the boot camp.
And it kind of makes sense from a breaking into tech. I really like that, getting your train on the tracks. So like FinOps could be the opportunity for someone from finance or from business to get into the cloud in the first place. But maybe, as you say, they try it, they like it, they love talking to the engineers, they get how the applications are made, they understand how it all hooks together. Then they can go for that bootcamp or that further training, because as we I think we were talking offline, you don't necessarily need that computer science degree or whatever it is. You could come from a different background, and like you're demonstrating your value and knowledge and ability to learn is as important as I went to college for 4 years and here's my piece of paper.
Say I agree. Like the good thing is that IT gives you, there are so many entry points. If you have a background in finance, then in business you can slip right into the FinOps track. And if you have a background in security, you could end up in cloud security. If you have a background in data and analytics, you can end up in cloud, that direction as well. So there are a lot of entry points that get you in there, and and then once you are inside, once you're in the club, then you can find that branching out into other areas is also possible.
Very good. And if someone is kind of beginning and the cloud is so big and unwieldy and you've got, I don't know, hundreds of services, thousands of machine types, all these sort of variables, where would you recommend one begins to kind of start unpicking it? Is there any like hands-on labs or experience that people can gain to see, to have a poke around and to see what is this thing all about?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think the cloud practitioner exam is a good place to start. I think in AWS, you can stand up a free tier of the cloud. You can set up your own AWS account, and you have services that you can run within the free tier. And so I recommend that folks try those services, utilize projects. There are a number of projects like the Cloud Resume Challenge, and there are a number of like programs and systems and challenges that people have created to help push you through a tutorial design to try to get familiar with these concepts and to learn about cloud concepts and that as well. I would say the trainings that I mentioned before would get you familiar with that. I think in general, the cloud concepts that folks should be are going to be important to be familiar with are Linux. So you'll want to focus in on Linux and Bash, right? You need to be familiar with Linux. Linux kind of runs the cloud. Windows isn't a thing really. I think in all of my consulting and experience, the only folks that run Windows are like Windows shops, maybe folks running on Azure. But even on Azure, a lot of folks run Linux. But most people, Windows isn't quite popular unless you are running the Microsoft stack, .NET and SQL Server and things like that. So Linux is critically important, and learning how to use Bash to script is important. Learning Python from a programming perspective, to be able to write scripts and to be able to manipulate your services is important. Learning Git and GitHub. So these are concepts that allow you to work on code in a shared environment. So it's a great thing to know. And then GitHub is a part of, you will people will have heard of CI/CD or DevOps.
Yes.
This is kind of an important key technology for DevOps and CI/CD pipelines. And then the last one is Terraform. Terraform is the infrastructure as code language that is the most popular for building infrastructure in AWS and Azure and GCP. You can use Terraform to order a Domino's pizza. It's
Okay.
quite funny. It's a very powerful language. But I would say that those are kind of the four big concepts to be able to kind of get your entry point. And as you go and learn those either through training videos or free videos on YouTube, or doing your own projects and things like that, you're going to you're going to get a concept for what this job is like. It's
Yeah.
going to involve using these technologies, troubleshooting issues, running into problems, and trying to kind of use ChatGPT to suss it out,
Yeah.
and use Stack Overflow and things like that.
And that's quite helpful for, I suppose, if someone is FinOps focused, it helps get inside the mind of the solution architects and the engineers, because this is the kind of stuff that they the challenges that they face, the tools that they use. So by understanding those, you get a better understanding of where they're coming from, what they can do, and how how what their day to day kind of looks like. And by the better you understand them, the more you can support them. And as we mentioned before, the more you can maybe transition to a more hands-on approach. If you know how the costs work, and then it's not that big a leap, you're already having the conversation with the engineering teams to get those extra skills in your skill set, and kind of cross the divide, cross the chasm, and instead of trying to come up with solutions to optimize and maybe save some money, you're looking at ways to optimize the actual application itself, and drive those changes, which is next level stuff again. And they say that people with the combination of skills of stakeholder engagement, cost awareness, technical skills, they're unicorns that people are trying to look for. But if you can put your hands on the keyboard and do commitment management at the same way that you can build applications and write code, you're in a really strong position. Really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say what I'm seeing in the market, and maybe you're seeing the same thing. It'd be interesting to get your take. I'm seeing FinOps kind of split down the middle, and we have the folks that are running kind of running the reports and generating the intelligence on one side, and then you have the folks that are kind of the folks that are generating the reports and um, kind of showcasing the potential savings. And then on the other side, you have the folks that are doing the remediation and actually actioning those recommendations on the other side, because they today they tend to be two different skill sets. And I think if you can do both, then even better. But that's what I'm seeing in the market.
No, 100% agree. Like they've recently had that FinOps for engineers certification has been released by the foundation, which kind of comes from that kind of lens, whereas before the initial FinOps certified practitioner is more leaning towards a non-technical, or someone from outside the cloud could pick that up and make sense of it, whereas the engineering one is a different kettle of fish. And like say, rate optimization is low hanging fruit, but the usage optimization, turning stuff off, right sizing it, removing unattached volumes. Like that's where the money is in terms of the compound effect of improvements. And I suppose from a green ops perspective and sustainability, if that comes into it, like paying less for something doesn't mean that Amazon don't have a machine running in a data center in North Virginia, but if you switch off enough of them, maybe that might save this planet that seems to be on fire. So that there might be something there.
Yeah, yeah. I would say, they're going to have some level of overhead that they're going to keep on to potentially cover for what people might need. So they'll have supply, but if the demand reduces enough, then yeah, certainly they're going to shut off things on their side as well. They're only going to keep enough running to handle the demand at the time and potential up ramp. And they're doing the math on the back end to know exactly how much they need to keep running at any given time. So
Oh, very, very interesting. My last question now is so the cloud is never changing concept, new machines, new services coming out all the time. Is there any kind of recommendations that you might have about how someone might be able to keep in touch with what's happening with the latest trends, what might be applicable? Obviously, AI and all this sort of stuff is all kicking off, and that will have its own ramifications. But what way would you recommend someone keep finger on the pulse of what's changing?
yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's important for people to realize that can sound scary, right? The fact that cloud is changing all the time, but that's actually the advantage of folks that are trying to make a change into these roles, right? The fact that it changes so often means that you can kind of step into the middle of the river and kind of just get in where you're at and start learning and start growing on the services that are brand new, and then you have as much experience as the person who's been doing it for 10 years. This whole system, the whole ecosystem kind of rolls over every 5 years and has all brand new services. Actually, I was talking to somebody about when I started in cloud, Lambda hadn't been released yet. Like there's just so much change that allows you to jump in the middle. So I think that's, first of all, that I think should be encouraging to people, but it can be daunting. So I would say that there are a number of podcasts, specifically podcasts on AWS, FinOps podcasts, yours, for instance, and other. I follow a lot of folks on LinkedIn, and that kind of keep the news fresh in my feed. I think LinkedIn is critically important to your career in IT, whether it's FinOps or cloud or security or data. You'll want to look to curate a list of folks that you should be following on LinkedIn, whose content is engaging, who's discussing things that are changing, new and interesting, and start to make connections with recruiters and things like that. I think LinkedIn, there's a lot that happens there that's important to your career, but it can be a place where you can follow kind of the latest and greatest news about what people are saying about Terraform and the licensing changes, or AWS's new AI system Bedrock, or all of these kinds of things as well, because particularly AI and large language models, ChatGPT, these things are changing very, very fast. It's a lot to keep up with, but uh, it, I think LinkedIn provides a platform to help you do that.
And to make connections. That's how I got talking to you, and that's how we ended up here as well. So the power of LinkedIn continues. So I might wrap it up there, Coin. I'll just leave and let do you want to let people know how they can get in contact with you and where they can catch up on your material?
Sure, I imagine we'll have a link in the description to the podcast, but it's called Get Into Cloud, and I'm on LinkedIn, Coin Graham, there as well. Would love to connect with everyone and help you and kind of view your cloud journey and help you along with that as well.
That's great, Coin. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you as well.